Sometimes sisterhood can be very complicated. You can be each other's best friend, or like in this case, you can be arch rivals. Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine were sisters. They were only 15 months apart, and they were both old Hollywood actresses. Both sisters won Lead Actress Academy Awards. Olivia had two, Joan had one, and to this day, they are the only siblings to win lead at the Academy Awards. Growing up, these two were very competitive. Olivia was more outgoing. She was favored by their mother. Joan was often sick as a child, and she couldn't do everything her big sister did, so she lived under Olivia's shadow. She talked about how Olivia would torment her by reading aloud from the Bible and describing the crucifixion scene in great detail, which scared the shiz out of Joan. She would have to wear Olivia's hand-me-downs, but before handing over the clothes, she would rip them to shreds, and Joan would have to sew the clothes back together. They took an IQ test, where Joan's score was a little bit higher, and she said Olivia attacked her. According to Joan, they were swimming, and Olivia jumped on her and broke her collarbone. Joan was a little bit more talkative about their rivalry, like little sister vibes. Fast forward, they moved to Los Angeles, and Olivia begins doing her thing in Hollywood. She's becoming a successful actress. She's got a studio contract. She often co-stars with Errol Flynn, who was married, and they did not have a relationship, but I think they did. Joan is like, hold on, wait a minute, I also want to be an actress. So Olivia and their mother say, okay, but you can't use de Havilland. You've got to use Fontaine, which was their stepfather's last name. Olivia is in Gone with the Wind. Joan starts working with Hitchcock. Olivia starts dating Jimmy Stewart, and you guessed it, our cameo man, Howard Hughes. But later, Joan wrote that Howard tried to propose to her while he was with Olivia. Messy boots. These two are constantly throwing shade at each other. Joan said she was offered the role in Gone with the Wind, but they wanted someone plain, so she suggested her older sister. Olivia wasn't much better because she said she was offered the lead role in Hitchcock's Rebecca, but she turned it down and recommended her little sister. In 1942, both sisters were nominated for Best Lead Actress Academy Awards. Both were seated at the same table, and Joan won the award. Reports say Olivia was like, yes, we did it, and she tried to hug her sister, and Joan just walked off. But later, Joan said she was in shock. They continue working. They're booked. They're busy. Joan gets married first. When Olivia married Marcus Goodrich, Joan was quoted as saying, I don't know anything about him except that he was married 4 times and wrote 1 book. I wish it was the other way around. So when Olivia won her first Oscar for Best Actress in 1947, Joan tried to hug her backstage, and Olivia walked right on by her. Everyone in Hollywood knew about the bad blood between them. They lived separate lives, but they would get together occasionally. There was further tension because Joan was estranged from her kids, and they still spoke to Olivia. Everything came to a head when in 1975 their mother passed away from cancer. Olivia was with her mother. Joan was on tour. Olivia didn't invite Joan. Joan came to the services anyway. Joan once said, I got married before her. I won the Oscar before Olivia. And if I pass away before her, she'll undoubtedly be livid. And she did. She passed away in 2013 at the age of 96. Next day, Olivia released a statement saying she was shocked and saddened by the news. And in 2020, Olivia de Havilland passed away at the age of 104. Both Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine were amazing actresses, so it's a little bit sad they're known for their rivalry. But personally, I think Joan was jealous of her older sister. What do you guys think?
I thought about it, and if anyone ever tried to make a movie or a TV show about the legendary century-long feud between Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine, they would need to go full I, Tonya, multiple unreliable narrators, because we do not actually know what went down between these sisters. Joan and Olivia were 2 of the top actresses of the golden age of Hollywood, and to this day are the only siblings to ever both win lead acting Oscars, and anyone will tell you they hated each other. But as famous as this feud was, Olivia and Joan only publicly commented on it a handful of times, and what little they did say pretty much contradicts each other at every turn. So settle in and hit that 2x if you need, because there's a lot of she said to unpack here. I traced the origin of their feud back to roughly the moment of Joan's birth. Olivia and Joan were born in Japan, just 15 months apart, in 1916 and 17, to English parents Walter and Lillian de Havilland, who divorced when the girls were quite young. Joan was a very sickly child, and her health was cited constantly by their mother in her decision-making, whether it was moving the 2 girls to California when they were kids, or constantly telling Joan that she couldn't do something, but Olivia could. That definitely played into Joan's lifelong belief that Olivia was their mother's favorite child. They were always vying for attention and physically fought all throughout their childhood. Joan even claimed that Olivia once fractured her collarbone. So from literal go, they just did not get along. When Olivia was 18, she was discovered by a Hollywood director, and her mother moved to LA so that she could make her film debut in the 1935 adaptation of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Joan, who at this point had moved back in with their father in Japan for a couple years, saw Olivia off and running on a string of movies and was like, I also want to do that, which neither Olivia nor their mother particularly wanted to hear. Olivia is later quoted as saying that she tried to get Joan sent to finishing school instead, saying, I wanted Hollywood as my domain, and I wanted San Francisco society to be hers. But Joan moved in with Olivia and their mother anyway. The story of how Joan took the name Fontaine, like many things in this video, depends on who you ask. Some say that their mother outright refused to let Joan use the last name de Havilland, but Olivia is quoted as saying that she agreed to help Joan break into acting if she changed her name to avoid confusion. Either way, she took her stepfather's last name, but always resented having to do it. Olivia's career really took off in 1938 with The Adventures of Robin Hood, and she snagged her first of 5 Oscar nominations in 1940 for Gone with the Wind. It was an uphill battle getting out from under her sister's shadow, but Joan started gaining traction soon after and got her first of 3 Oscar nominations in 1941 for Rebecca. Later, Olivia would claim that she was actually the first choice for Rebecca, but she couldn't get Warner Brothers to agree to lend her out, and Joan would claim that she was the first choice for Gone with the Wind, but the director had told her that she was too stylish for the role, and so she suggested her sister instead. Which is such a funny and unnecessary burn. The public became aware of their complicated relationship at the 1942 Oscars. Olivia and Joan were both up for Best Actress, and Joan won for Suspicion. Fun fact, she is the only actress to ever win an Oscar for a Hitchcock movie. Once again, the details of what happened next depend on who you ask. They were seated at the same table, and the tabloids said that as Joan got up, she pointedly rejected Olivia's attempt to congratulate her, and Olivia was embarrassed and offended by this. But Joan said that she was just in shock and embarrassed that she had beat her older, more experienced sister, and it was Olivia who was telling her to go up. Years later, Joan would backtrack and say that in the moment she thought Olivia was enraged about losing to her. But there's literally a picture of them shaking hands as Joan gets up to get the award. Whatever the truth might be, the tabloids ran with it and Life magazine coined it a feud. Things got worse in 1946 when Olivia married her first husband, Marcus Goodrich. Joan apparently commented, all I know about him is that he's had 4 wives and written 1 book. Too bad it's not the other way around. This made its way back to Olivia, who was so hurt that when she won her first Oscar the following year and Joan tried to approach her backstage to congratulate her, she totally ignored her and turned away. They didn't talk for 5 years after the incident, just in a standoff waiting for an apology that wasn't being offered, but they did start talking again once Olivia and Marcus got divorced. This is where the details start to get even more vague. They were photographed together a few times in the 50s and 60s, so we know they were at least in contact, arguably friendly, but Olivia especially was one of the most private actresses in Hollywood, and so there's little to no actual information on their relationship for multiple decades. But we do know that the worst blow to their relationship was the death of their mother in 1975. Joan said that she and Olivia had stopped talking because they disagreed on how to handle their mother's cancer treatment. Joan was touring a play out of the country when their mother died and said that Olivia didn't attempt to find out where she was to notify her and didn't invite her to the funeral. But Olivia said that she did send a telegram, it just took 2 weeks to reach Joan, and that when she told her, Joan brushed her off and said that she was too busy to attend. All we know is that they never spoke again. Soon after, in 1978, Joan wrote a memoir and gave a few interviews where she confirmed the feud and finally told her side of the story. But I think having her reflect publicly for basically the first time 30 to 40 years after everything, and when their relationship is at its lowest point, is a bit of a skewed perspective. Leads to quotes like, I got married first, got an Academy Award first, had a child first, if I die she'll be furious because again I'll have got there first. Both sisters lived incredibly long lives. When Joan passed away in 2013 at 96 years old, Olivia put out a rare statement saying that she was shocked and saddened. Olivia would live for another 7 years, passing away in 2020 at 104 years old. But they each addressed the feud head-on right before they died. As far as I can tell, Olivia only spoke publicly on the feud 2 times. Once in 1957, setting the record straight on the 1946 Oscars, and once in an interview with the Associated Press for her 100th birthday. In the latter, she said, a feud implies continuing hostile conduct between 2 parties. I cannot think of a single instance wherein I initiated hostile behavior, but I can think of many occasions where my reaction to deliberately inconsiderate behavior was defensive. She confirmed that they had severed contact, but also said, on my part, it was always loving, which is kind of a funny claim considering she refers to Joan as Dragon Lady multiple times in this interview. Just a few years earlier in 2013, Joan had taken it a step further in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter and said that there was no feud and never had been. Just totally denied everything. She said it was all made up by the tabloids and, quote, Olivia and I have never had a quarrel. We have never had any dissatisfaction. We have never had hard words. Now, even with all the gray area we just discussed, there are some hard words very much on record, so I can't take that totally seriously. All I know for sure is we will literally never know what really went down between Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine.